Create custom title blocks in Revit. To create a custom title block in Revit, there are two ways you could do this. The first way would be to start a new template that's totally blank and create a new title block from scratch. The second way, which might be a little bit easier, is to take a title block that Revit already has been created and modifying it to be your own. In the first step, we'll go to our File tab, pick New, Title Block. This brings up several title block templates of different sizes, and one where you can create your own size. If we open one, for instance, a size Architecture D, which is 36 inches wide by 24 inches tall, you can see that it brings in a border. And if we dimension those lines, we'll see that in fact it is 36 inches wide and 24 inches tall. This is very important to keep these lines the same dimensions, as Revit uses this border to plot, and if you modify this, the scale of your drawing will be incorrect. Now we won't go much further than this for this template. It's much easier to take an already defined title block template and modify it to be your own. So I'll go ahead and close this template. And instead of creating a new template from a new title block from scratch, we'll open an already defined title block template. To do that, again, we'll go to our File tab, and instead of going to the new title block, we'll go ahead and open a family. Title blocks are families that are also templates. Once we select Open, we'll go to our Imperial Library, and we'll scroll down to the title block folder. In here you can see very similar file names, where it is the architectural size letter for the sheet, followed by the dimension of the sheet. Let's go ahead and open the Architectural D 22 by 34 horizontal title block. And we'll go ahead and change the dimension, rename the file, and then add some information to make it a custom title block for ourselves. So I'll go ahead and open that. And I'm going to put dimensions in both directions so we can keep track of the size. Again, this is very important to keep the outside edge or the outside border the correct size, as when you plot from this template or this title block, Revit will use these borders as the sheet border, and therefore the scale will be correct. So you can see that this is 34 inches wide by 22 inches tall. Well, let's make this 24 by 36. 36 inches wide, 24 inches tall. So the first thing we'll want to do is rename the title block. So we'll say File, Save As, and we'll want to save it as a family. I'm going to go ahead and put this on my desktop, and I'll change it to 24 by 36. And you can see that it is an RFA. The extension for the file is an RFA. That's a Revit family. And we can save that. Now let's go ahead and change this to be 36 inches wide and 24 inches tall. So we have a 24 by 36 title block. And now we can modify the interior lines to however we want. I'm going to go ahead and select that and see that it is 65 1/28 of an inch away, so we can match this here. And so the border of the sheet border versus a line that we'll have drawn on the sheet is consistent all the way around. And we might want to move this entire title block to be the right size. So I'm going to put a dimension string here as well. After I'm done making the title block look the way I want it, I'll go ahead and delete all of those dimension strings so that they don't get printed with the title block. In fact, I can do these two right now. That one right now. Now you can see that the title block has come with some lines and some logos, and we can modify these to make it our own. For instance, we lengthen the height of this title block, so now we have a space here that we might want to fill in, and we'll want to probably keep it the same dimension as this, which is 1/8 of an inch. So what we can do is we can grab all of this. Actually, I'm going to put a dimension string here first so we can keep track of it. And now I'm going to scoot all of this down so it'll match the same border width, 1/8 of an inch. This is our revision chart. So when we add revisions, it'll be filled in. This is actually a Revit parameter. It's a schedule. And so as we add revision clouds and revision numbers and revision sets, this will be filled in automatically. This is a nice thing to have on your title block, so let's keep it. And I'll scoot this down and just eyeball it. And now we have some addresses where we might add our consultants, and now we have a little bit of a blank space. So what I would do in this instance is I'm going to get rid of the listing of a directory of consultants, and I'll go ahead and put the title of my project here, and I'll put a place for an architectural stamp here, and then we can change the logo and maybe our contact information here, and that is an easy way to start your own custom title block. First, I need another line down here to differentiate this space from the revision cloud. Again, I'm going to make sure this is 1/8 of an inch, so I can take both of these and copy them down here, and I can split that part. And now I have a space for a stamp, though it's probably too short. So I'm going to go ahead and grab both of these and just bring it up. So now we have a spot for our architectural stamp. So once we plot these sheets of drawings with this title block, we can stamp the drawing and sign it in this space here. Before moving on to the area where we'll put the project name, let's take a look at the bottom right hand side of this title block. You can see that there are specific labels that have already been filled in. Client name, project name, sheet name. We're going to go ahead and create the project name up here. So I'm going to delete this label. Labels are text that can be filled in with information once this title block is loaded into a project. The text that you see here where it says client name, that is just a space holder, the client name. You can see if I click on this under the project properties palette, it shows that it is in fact a label. We can look at the type, and the type of labels really just describes or changes the way it looks. We'll take a look at how you can change which label it is. But right now you can see that the label is what it says. The client name will be the client name. Again, once you load this into your project in Revit, you can change this client name to be the actual name, and it will change on all the title blocks. So let's go ahead and add a label up into the title block and make it look the way we want it to look. To do that, we'll go to our Create tab, and we will go to our text panel and add a label. Revit will want us to pick what the label looks like first. So we'll start with a 1/4 inch label. We'll change this in just a minute, but first we'll place the label. Once we click somewhere on the screen with our left mouse button, we get a dialog box and we can pick which label we want this one to be. If we scroll down, we'll see that there is a project name. To pick this as the label, we will use this green arrow to push the project name label over into this side of the dialog box. And now Revit knows that for this label, we want to use this label parameter. You can see that the parameter name is project name as well as the sample value. The sample value is what we see on the screen in the Titleblock family. We'll hit OK, and now we have project name. We can scoot this over into the area that we want the project name to be and place it vertically. But it doesn't quite look right. So I'm going to stretch the text box to fill the area that I want my project name to be. And I'm going to actually change this to be a little bit bigger, maybe a different font, and to center it in this text box. So to do that, I'll edit the type. And I'll duplicate the type, and I'll call it 1/2 inch project name. Or if I wanted to use this label style for more things than just the project name, I might call it 1/2 inch Rockwell centered. So now I'll need to go and change the font to Rockwell. I'll change the text size to 1/2 inch. And hit OK. And then I'll want to change the vertical align to middle and the horizontal align to center. And I'll apply all of that, and you can see that it changes the font, the size, and the justification. Now I also might want the project address as a label, maybe in smaller font below this. So we'll do the same thing. We'll create a label, and this one might be 1/8 inch. The font size might be 1/8 inch. And we'll click on the screen, and now we'll look for the label for project address. And we'll push that over there, hit OK, and now it is in the project. Make this vertically. I'm going to change this to middle as well. So I'm going to change this one to top because there'll be probably multiple lines, and I'll want to place this label in the Titleblock file at the top part of it, and it'll infill from here going to the right. And I'll want to center that as well. And we can put that right there and stretch this to be the full extent of that box. It'll be more clear once we load this into a project how these are used. But for now, we've made a project name here and a project address. We've created an area for our stamp, and we took the project name off of here. So we have the client name here and a sheet name here, along with more information that is also important. This here is a date stamp, and this is also a label that you can add. So whenever you actually plot these sheets, this will update for the date and the time that it's been plotted. The last thing we should do is put our own logo up here, and maybe some contact information for the designer. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of both of these. To create a logo, we'll go to our Insert tab, and we'll insert an image. I'm going to go ahead and go to my logo. And place it in the file. I'm going to shrink it by grabbing these grips on the corner and put it in the appropriate box. Now for my contact information, I don't need a label because it won't change. It's always going to be the same thing. So I can use just text in this area. And I might add some more information. So now, because that's a text and this is an image, these won't change no matter which project we bring it into. However, the labels we will modify to be project specific. So let's double check one last time that the dimensions of the outside border are correct, and then we'll load this into a project and see how it works. We can look up here and see that we've named this 24 by 36 architectural D size sheet. It's 36 inches wide, so that one's good. And this is 24 inches tall. And again, please note this is the very outside border of the title sheet. And we created an interior border just a bit on the inside of these exterior border. And these lines will be printed, plotted, but the outside border will not. This is telling Revit the size of the sheet. So we've created our title block. We'll want to save that. And I'm going to tile this window. So I have an open project over here on the right. And we can load this title block into this project. We do that when we add a sheet. We'll right click on our sheet over here on the project browser. And we can say new sheet. Revit will ask which title block we'll want to bring in. It has one that's already loaded, but we don't want that. We'll want to bring in the one that we've used. So we'll load. And remember, we put that on the desktop. And let's take a look for it. There it is. D 24 by 36 horizontal. That's the one that we just created. So we'll load that. And here it shows up in the loaded title block section, and we'll say OK. And now we have it. And you can see that our title block, we're in our project, and this is in fact our title block. Let's create one more sheet. Now we don't need to load it anymore. We've already loaded into the project, and it is now in this dialog box. We could pick whichever one we wanted that has already been loaded, but we want to pick the 24 by 36. So now we have two sheets in this project. Let's take a look at what information is similar between the two and what information is different between the two. You can see that Revit assigned different sheet numbers to the different title blocks, A101 and A102. So these labels, the sheet number, changes per the sheet. So for every sheet it has a different number. We can modify the owner by just clicking on it, and let's say I'm the owner, and when I say OK, you can see that it has updated for every sheet there. So some of these labels are by sheet and some of them are by project. Project name will be by project, and again we can just click on this and say the title of the project, Tom's House, and you can see that it has updated on all of the sheets. Same with the project address when we enter this, as well as the project number down here, and the issue date and the author. Now the sheet name, this might be floor plan level 2 is by sheet. So if you want to create additional labels for your custom title block, keep in mind which labels are by sheet and which labels are by project. And you can just reuse that label and modify it to be correct or to be the one you want to use. Now there's one last thing we want to correct when we're modifying the default title block that Revit has to be our own. We used a different size title block and modified it. So when we select this title block within our project here, we can see over here in our properties palette that it lists it as the file name that we had, but the parameter of it is still incorrectly labeled. To fix this so it reads the correct label size, title block size, we'll open up the original title block file, change it there, and reload it into our project. So let's go ahead and open that original file. And you can see over on the Create panel, Properties palette, right here is the Family Types icon. This shows us all the family types that are associated with this file. The only one we have is the name of the file, or the title block, which is incorrectly named at 22 inches by 34 inches. We should have corrected this before we even loaded the title block into our project, but we can change it here and now. This icon here is the rename icon. If we select this, we can go in and correctly name our family type, 24 by 36. We'll hit OK, and we can see that now that is the only family type we have. Hit OK. I'm going to save this file. Now I'm going to open up I'm going to create a new project file. And create a new sheet here. Load the one we just made. Load the title block we just made. And now you can see when you highlight it, there's only one 24 by 36 inch title block. The reason I created a new project to show you this, let me close out of that project file. I'm going to close out of the title block file. And we're back to our project 1. This is the one that we originally loaded our title block into. If I highlight this, you can still see that it has both title blocks, the 22 by 34 and the 24 by 36. And that is that's because once we loaded this project file, the title block file into here, it kept them both. If I open up our updated project file, it won't get rid of the 22 by 34 inch project type, or family type, excuse me, even if I load this into the project. You can see that they're both still there. To get rid of the one in this project file, we'll have to purge. So let's learn that. Under the Manage tab, you can find the Purge Unused Items. If we select this, Revit will list every object that has not been loaded into our project yet, or used within our project. If I start opening up views, or folders I should say, you can see the ones that are checked. If I were to hit OK, it would delete or purge 355 of these objects, some of which, or many of which, we might want to use as we work in our project. So I always suggest to uncheck all of the buttons so you don't accidentally purge anything you don't want. You don't purge anything that you might want to use later. Under the annotation symbols, we can find our title block. And here's, oops, I did not change it. Before we do this, we'll want to highlight, so we're back in our project here. We'll want to highlight the project, the title block, and change it from the 22 by 34 to the correctly named 24 by 36. And we'll have to do that for every title block that's in this project. In this case, we only have 2. Now we can go back to our Manage, Purge Unused, open up the annotation symbols. You can see all of these checks, so we don't want any of those marked. And now we can go to our title block and get rid of the incorrectly named 22 by 34 inch. So we're going to purge that out of the project. And now when we select the title block, you can see that it is named correctly.